Okay, welcome everyone, Morph Channel again, and this time we will talk about how to create those morphs. Now, morph is technically a blend between two shapes, so we will create morph targets for the head, indicate minor changes, and when we are using the Morpher modifier, it will act like a mixer and create a blend and morphing between the two shapes. Um, and of course you can load multiple channels and you can use thousands of models if you wish, and this is what we will do today, the basics. Now first of all, if you want to use morph, you have to have identical models. Otherwise, if you mess up the vertex IDs, the vertex addresses, if you prefer that term, it cannot really connect the changes. So it acts like a memory and loads in the data and follows the transitions, the delta, the movement of your points. So if the morph cannot address those vertices accurately, it will fail to perform the blend. Now, for this reason, I will select the model, the entire model, and make a copy of it. Don't get me wrong, we will not work on the hair, we will not work on the t-shirt, but it is easier if you have an absolutely free of skin, free of modifier model, and then you will use it as a base. You will understand this process easier once we are dialed in the process. Okay, so now what to do? Shift S to hide away splice, and Ctrl V to make a double of all these models, and it's instantly generated here. I will press Alt Q to isolate instantly, and now I have to break the connections of the bones and the controllers and everything like that. So here at the head I will just remove the skin. At the eye I will use UV map is okay, but here we go. In the motion panel we have a rotational constraint. That's look at constraint. We'll delete this and also this one. Okay, so that's it. Now we have a free model. We have no constraints on the teeth and tongue, but these are linked. So what I will do is select everything and hit on unlink selection, and now before actually jumping away I will move it off. Okay, so right now the original model is here at the center, anyway, let me do it in another side. So I will hold press down the shift. Now a lock selection is performed. Now I'm exiting from isolation selection and I can move this away easily. Now what happens if I don't perform these? Just look at here. So I'm selecting everything, moving it away, so holding down shift, and this is what happens. Okay, why? Because I made the copy of the head, but the skin modifier is still there, and the skin sticks to the bones. And of course I have a look at constraint, and the look at constraint is also takes place. So the eyes are looking at the same constraint. This is the reason why I do a copy first of these models. So I'm selecting it, Ctrl V, Alt Q. Now I have the model and remove skin, etc., etc. So just everything is deleted. It falls back to the original selection, and here we go. Now to make sure that I will not mess this up, I will change the wireframe color of these models, and usually I like to rename it to morph base. So center your head, and that will be morph or anything like that. Just make sure that it is not the same, so it's easy to make a difference between the models. Okay, now the reason why we do have to keep accessories and not just a simple head, what you do if you change something For example, in this case, if I change a open up the mouth and changing a phoneme, of course I have to have the teeth. If I want to blink this model, of course I have to have the eyeballs. Hair is not a necessity, so I will not use it that much. Same as the t-shirt. But once you have an original model, it makes no big deal that if you have a plus hair or a plus t-shirt. So there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, now because this one is the original model, I will just select it again, the parts I need. I want to create a smile now. I don't need the hair, but I definitely need the teeth, and I will just shift and drag to make the first model, and this will be the smile that I'm working on. Okay, I guess we have a tongue, and here we go. That will be the tongue. Where are you, tongue? This is the wire. This is the tongue. We don't need a tongue for the smile. Okay, so we have original model with the controllers. We have a base model for the morph, never changed, just for a copy and just for referencing. And we have the first morph target that we will just create. Now what to do, in the vertex mode, select one vertex, and it's a typical thing that I will use soft selection. Now soft selection, if you never use soft selection, a couple things to remember though. First of all, it will always start from 20. If you are using 20 meters, if you're using meters, it will be 20 meters. If you're using centimeters, it will be 20 centimeters. If you're not using any units, it will be 20 as a generic. So I have to restrict it, make it lower. Okay, now this is not a big deal, so I can easily dial in with the fall off and move it back slightly, even increase the fall off a bit, moving it back and pull it out. I don't want to create any kind of a cross section here, so this is why I need the teeth. I have to check in if the model is not collapsing. If there's no such thing, I want to avoid it as I can do. And as you see, I'm working away from the symmetry. Alright, so this pose will be mirrored. I will show how to make a mirror, but right now I'm just working on one side. The smiles will be adjusted independently, so this is the reason why I'm working on one side. And because we can use mirror, a special type of mirror, don't get me wrong, it's not a simple mirror, it will be okay to work only one side. Alright, it is a half smile. There is a reason, because we will create multiple steps for the smile. But right now I'm satisfied with this one. Now, go back to the original head, and what we do need is a Morpher modifier. Now when you want to add a Morpher modifier, if you click on editable poly, you will receive this warning. But actually you have to have the Morpher modifier on top of the editable poly and under the skin. But if you cannot go under the skin just by using this hold, it could be a little bit confusing. So what I like to do is just turn this off. No, I don't want to go there. Call a morph target here, Morpher modifier, and just drag and drop it below the skin, and that's actually quite easy to do, and you have no worry about or holding the frame. There's no crash kind of situation. Okay, so Morpher is loaded, and technically what we do need is we have these channels. All of these channels are empty and there is no name. So if you see empty, that means it's empty, so it's not loaded or not used yet. And voila, we have 100 channels, so you can increase it quite a lot. Okay, 100 channel is a lot. And you can even use multiple morph targets within one channel. Now just let me first load this pick object from current scene. So I will pick this guy, but before we are actually picking it, I just forgot, but it's a good idea to rename. So that will be Morph Centurio Smile R1. Okay, this is the most important, the smile R1, because this will be a smile on the right side, and this will be the first step of the smile because it will be a two-step smile. So going back to here, Morpher Channel, pick object from scene, picking on a guy, and just let me test it quickly. So what I do here is changing the value, and as you see, there's a reason I'm using the wireframe, because wireframe gives you a good impression of distortion. What you want to use, and this is the reason why we're using soft selection, that we want to achieve a nice smooth transition and a smooth stretch, especially if you are working with textures and you have some textures. You want to keep this change relatively smooth. Okay, so that was the first step, the first level of this smile. Now go back here, select this head again, shift and drag, because we need another step. The other step will be smile R2, and just going in, and I will follow what I've just started. So drag again this point, or actually keep it selected. Maybe I need to add some fall off, and I will drag this even more. Okay, so right now I'm on the next stage, so I will emphasize the changes on the head. Okay, make it more air here. I will also lift this up, and probably I have to take care of the changes. Now, one thing before we are dealing with the symmetry, now I have something to worry about. Just let me explain. As you see, these points, so if I start moving this point along an x-axis, this is what happens. This center line will start to shift. Now the problem with that, if I don't pay attention on this, and I will try to mirror this expression will be mirrored, this side will be mirrored to the other side, but there will be a confusion here in the center because it's off center now, so it's hard to deal with. For this reason, for this purpose, I always stay away moving the symmetry along the x-axis. If you're selecting this point, for example, and you're grabbing along the z-axis in this case, this one is fine. But if you just drag it here, that's not okay because it's hard to make a mirror. Alright? So when you deal with this, keep that in mind. This is the reason why I'm going back to the soft selection and dialing and changing the fall off. So I'm reducing the fall off. Make my change here and there, and that's fine. Okay, I have a minor issue here, so I will have to really lower down the fall off. That's it now. Okay, that will work fine. Just let me check it without wireframe, and probably I want to rotate it a bit more, and maybe emphasize it a bit more, probably lifting up the nose a bit. Okay, so that's the second step. Just make a comparison, just a visual. This is the first step. This is the second step. This is a quite articulated smile, and don't worry, we will mirror it to the other side. So if you want to create a full ear-to-ear smile, there will be no problem, but that requires a controller for this. Okay, now what happens if we have two targets and we have one channel? We can load the second target just as the same as we did with the first, same way. I'm hitting on it, and this is what happens. It automatically recognizes that because I was using the same channel and I was clicking on a pick object, it will recognize it. Okay, now I have a two-level morph target, morph channel. So this is what happens. At the first, we have a 0 to 100% scale list. So when I start to drag this up, move it to 50, this is the end of the first morph target region, and from 50 to 100, the next level steps in. Okay, that's it. That's what happens, right? And this is one of the reasons why I really do like morph targets, because you can you can sculpt many details. You can sculpt combinations. If you want, you can add changes around the ear, because sometimes the ear is also moving if you have a grin, a forced smile, or a strong smile. Sometimes it also affects the cheek a little bit more intensively. Now, turning back on F4, even if you don't see that much of a change without the wires, the texture will reflect quite drastic stuff. So don't forget, when you are using textures, textures are really helpful to emphasize the effects of the change of the face. But if you are dealing wrong, if you're doing something wrong with the wireframes, you can really bust yourself with the textures. So sometimes those are really handy. Sometimes you want to avoid to use that much of a complicated texture, because it can really just makes life harder, because you have to model a bit more accurately. Okay, now how the hell can I mirror these models? How is it possible to mirror these models? First of all, imagine, so because we have the Morpher modifier accept no changes. So if I'm selecting this guy and going into symmetry, oh, just let me check it. Here we go. Symmetry, flip symmetry. We have a double smile. Ooh, wow, super nice. And I would go back here and go into Morpher and picking a new channel. Why not? And pick object from scene. I'm not able, so it's not even highlighting, okay, because of the modifier, because that changes the guy. So what I have to do, I have to use a different method to make a symmetrical model. And here we go, this is it. So I'm selecting the guy again. And believe it or not, I will make a copy of the teeth as well. Even if I'm just rotating, even if I'm just flipping the smile over, I have to make sure that the smile works perfectly. If I have to make a change on the fly, it will be easier if I have the teeth as a reference. Now, so keep that in mind. I will make a copy and use, this is an editable poly, so if the ribbon is open, I have a modeling tools, and within the modeling tools there is polygonal modeling and there is symmetry tools. Now symmetry tools is using a reference model. This is a topological reference. The topological reference is your original model without your geometric changes. Okay, and this is why I like to keep this guy separated, untouched. This is our base to work with. So that will be the main model. I have to pick the main. That will be morph center your head. And now I can go in and flip symmetry. Be sure you are turning on wireframe. Undo and redo, because sometimes it can mess up the symmetry line. Okay, so don't forget to check it. It's not okay if you just perform it without checking the wireframes. So make sure you are checking the wireframes. But actually that is quite simple. Okay, next step, going up here, pressing OK. Now I'll select this model. I don't have to load it again because it remembers. And I'll flip symmetry. Here we go, flip symmetry. Nice. So undo, redo, everything is working fine. Let me demonstrate what happens if I have an overlap symmetry problem. So this will be a ruined model. I will instantly change the wireframe to something else. Okay, blue is fine now. And what happens if I have a symmetry problem at the center? So I will just increase the fall off, make a shift here, or even drastically change it. So I'll do this. Alright, and I will just try to make a symmetry, flipping symmetry, And here we go. This is what happens. Okay, so be careful around the center edge. You don't want to mess with the center edge. You can move it up and down because that is easy to mirror, because the position along the x-axis will not change. But if you change the position along the x-axis in the symmetry line, that can create this type of effect, and you don't want it. Okay, especially around the nose, because that will be a flickering. So every time the guy is smiling, the nose will also be flickering a bit. So that's just creating a mess. So delete it. And here we go. This is the guy and Morpher, and we have the first channel, and I will select the first channel and rename it, because as you see, it's not really informative. I have Centurios, that's not really an information. So I have to delete the first. This is just the title, and the Centurios smile, I don't need 1 because it's actually 1 and 2. And so I will just keep it as smile right. And here we go, channel empty, pick object from current scene, that will be smile left. Just let me correct the name, smile left 1. And this guy is smile left 2. So going back to the main head, Morpher, and here we go, where you are, pick object from scene. So first model, pick object from scene, second model, and I'm instantly loading 2 models in here, and just let me check it. So there's the second one. Okay, guy is smiling, and the other smile. Okay, now everybody's happy. Okay, so this is it technically. Now what to do and how to move forward. Of course you can create many morphs. One thing about the mouth that could be a problem, I will show it instantly. But before we are doing that, let me show a way to control this morph in the next lesson. Okay, so see you next time, and we will create a slider to control this smile.